All right, this is Dan Henk, and welcome to another edition of the Skull Sections. And this is my first ever having somebody back on my podcast. So, Paul, thank you for being on this. And you got something else going on right now you want to talk about?
New book, Notes of Discord. It's not just a horror book. It's about a time period in punk rock where I was actually there, late 80s, Lower East Side of New York City, right around when Tompkins exploded. So it's definitely a horror book, but it's also like there's some memoir in there as well.
Okay. Yeah, it was super into punk rock when I was like a teenager in high school. Like I'm still into it, but it's like I was like, spiky hair, leather jacket with like metal spikes on it, combat boots, the whole thing. So is that the way you were?
Oh yeah. I mean, the only reason I don't still have a mohawk is, well, I'm in my 50s and my hairline does not support.
Right. Well,
Yeah, I
I mean, I
discovered
had
that in
brain
my
cancer, so I just shaved my head now. If you see, shaved my head and got tattooed. So, you know, I mean, it is what it
yeah.
is. It actually, I think it looks kind of weird when those guys show up like at the club or whatever. And they're like 50 and they still have that same haircut they had when they're like 19. It doesn't work as well.
I think the last time I actually had my mohawk up was the Philly Thrash Festival with like Inepsy and like Mike Thrashhead from Flipside put it up, and we could see from the trouble I had getting the thing up then.
I
It was time to move on.
remember there was a guy in high school and he spiked up his hair, but with super glue. So somebody
That
was
is a
behind him, like
disaster.
flicking off lead pieces. So he was basically had like clean shaven by the time he left.
Guy named Pete Toxic in Philly did super glue and it ended up dreading. Like he could never get it out, so it just turned into dreads.
Right.
And it was supposed to be spiked Liberty spikes, and it ended up being some really gnarly looking dreadlocks within a very short period of time.
All right, so let's get back to your book. You're saying that you were in Thompson when there was there was something going on at that point in time.
Well, I mean, the big moment was the Tompkins Square riot,
Okay,
um,
when was that?
late 80s.
Okay, that's before I moved to New York. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that was like the whole Squatter Rot period.
Okay.
So, like, and my band played Squatter Rot. We were part of that. We also played Terrible Trashy Tuesday at the Lismar. Matter of fact, the book released 35 years to the day that we played at the Lismar. So it was,
Okay.
and it's fun. I was just looking back on it, it's like, I was lying on my back, screaming my lungs out at the Lismar. It was raining, so there was like puddles, so it was like an electrocution hazard. And at no point during that was I thinking, you know what? One of these days, I'm going to write a heck of a book about this.
Mm, well, I don't know about you, but I know back in those days, I wasn't like debating any of that stuff. It was like you're kind of like living to the moment. Like I didn't think I'd be alive this long. I
I
thought I'd
don't,
be long dead.
I don't think any of that generation of punks like really thought, well, 50s. I can't wait to get to my 50s.
I thought that was so old. Yeah, I thought 30s was old. Like I'm going to see like GBH and Exploited and like L7, all these bands. It's like all the kids were pretty much in their 20s. They're like in the late teens or the 20s, where there were no old guys around whatsoever.
Well, it's funny. We used to always think of like Charlie Harper as being so old back in the 80s. And it's like now I'm older than Charlie Harper was when I was calling him so old when I was roadieing for him back in the 80s.
Well, yeah, I remember people like, dude, how old is Lee Ving? It's like, You know,
Lee goes back to the 60s. I mean, he was like a session musician in Philly in the late 60s. So he is, yeah, he's up there.
yeah, but he doesn't really look like he's aged. Like I remember seeing him like back in the day, and he was probably in his 40s by then, and he didn't seem old. I don't know. He's like I think he's part Asian, and I know that Asian people they age less. Like there's less. Like my girlfriend's Asian, so like the joke is Asian don't raisin.
But yeah, no, Lee like was like a session musician in Philly back in the 60s and the early 70s. Then he moved to LA and then like punk happened.
Okay.
And he met a couple of guys that were into it and he went from like a lot of those guys were session musicians like before that, like Billy Zoom was as well
Oh wow.
from X. Yeah, so
Maybe
he was
that's
a
why
session
they were so
musician.
good. They were actually skilled for a punk band.
Hold up, cats. We got a younger cat and an older cat, and they're discussing things.
Great. Yeah, my dog sometimes just like says, "Oh, you're in the middle of something. I'll go nuts."
Yeah, it's like neither cat was up here when I set everything up, and then as soon as we started, both cats were like, "No, I have to be here now." It's the most
Yeah,
inconvenient spot. So,
my dog especially likes like whenever I talk to my girlfriend, all of a sudden she's dying for attention. She's like, nibbling on my pants, trouser. She's like, barking. She's like doing the zoomies on the bed. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? I just took you out. But anyways, all right. So let's get back to your book. So you were saying the Tompkins Square Park. What's the theme? What's it about? What's going on?
well, I mean, at the there's the horror part, which is, I mean, cannibals, demons. It's kind of based off stuff that happened at the time, but not really, because it's really hard to write a book about like a time period you were in because you don't want to like pick fights after the fact. You don't want to dig up anything. You don't want to, get any digs in, but you want to give people the feel for what was really happening. So, I mean, there was a really notorious murder at the time, Daniel Rakowitz, and that sort of gave me like a jumping off point. I mean, I went way past what happened to like make it fully horrific, and well, it was pretty horrific on its own. Um, so I had that as a basis, and like there's the whole scene. I mean, because it's funny, nobody like really realized until years after the fact when like the casualties got big for some reason. That there
Which
was this
by the
whole
way,
other
I have to
scene.
say I'm not a fan, but okay.
They used to come to my shows, and I'm not a fan. So,
What were the
but
assholes? You?
no, it just they were the younger kids, you
Okay.
know. Uh, so like we were all in our early 20s and stuff, and they were the kids coming, and it's like you just don't even think of them at the time. But until they broke, nobody realized there was this whole other scene that wasn't New York hardcore happening in
Right.
New York City. It's like everybody knows about Vision and Gorilla Biscuits and Instead, and
Of
the list
course,
goes
yeah.
on and on and on.
Well, no, no, us old schoolers do, but I'm not sure if everyone does.
But like,
Like I'll
Chroma
mention Black Flag,
Cro-Mags
and people are
AF.
like, "Who? Like, how do you not know Black Flag?" But good.
Well, they're on tour and very expensive right now.
Oh,
Black
are
Flag's
they?
like
What incarnation of Black Flag is it?
it's basically Greg Gin solo band playing the hits of Black Flag.
Earlier Black Flag is. I'm a
Uh,
big
I,
fan of early Black Flag. I really don't like it when they went into their like we want to be Black Sabbath phase.
oh, it's there's going to be a lot of that. I mean, but yeah, they're playing in like Greenville or something, North Carolina, and it's like $50
Okay.
just for, yeah, just like $54, and I'm like, yeah, no, that's not happening. I saw them when they were Black Flag the
What
first
happened
time,
to
and I
those
don't.
$5 Fugazi shows? Like I remember seeing Fugazi when they were $5 in church
I mean,
basements.
just last year I saw um, Circle Jerks 7 sec. I mean, Circle Jerks TSOL and Negative Approach for 30, and they went
Oh, who
50
was
for Black
singing
Flag.
for Church?
Oh, it's Keith.
Oh, Keith. Yeah, he's awesome. He was actually one of my favorite Black Flag singers too.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I wanted to see TSOL especially because I had seen them with Joe, but I'd never seen them with Jack. So it was a chance to see him with Jack. So I definitely had to go down for that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean it was. I mean, Negative Approach is just no matter how old they get, man, there's still brutality on stage. I mean, it is one of the most brutal bands to see live you'll ever see. I mean, the first time I saw them at this one club in Nashville, they were so loud. The camera on my phone was vibrating. I couldn't get clear video of them. It was just the whole time, just because they like the force coming out of their speakers was just shaking my phone.
Yeah, I didn't even when I saw most of those shows, I didn't even have like a phone with the camera. You know, I just go there, get fucking tanked. You know, and by the end of the day, it probably had a few bruises, but I was okay.
Yeah, both. I mean, the back in the day shows, it was get boozed up, slam, go home, and hopefully remember some of it later.
Right. Well,
I
I
mean,
remember when see it was Biohazard playing with the Exploited and somebody else, and during the Biohazard show, some skinhead stage jogged off of the stage, and he had a steel-toed boot, and it hit me in the head, so I had a concussion. So I'm wandering around. My friends just thinking I'm fucked up, you know. But then after a while, when I keep asking them the same questions, they're like, "No, no, something's wrong." So the closest thing was a fire department. So they take me there. Fire department, they're like, hey, call a cop or call the ambulance. They call the cops. So the cops come. They're like, what are you guys on? We're like, we're not on anything. Look at his head. He has like a boot print on his head. So finally, I went to the hospital. But
now I feel lucky. I just got heat sick at an Exploited show. I mean,
you
it
never
wasn't.
got? Did you ever get followed and jumped afterwards for like moshing the wrong way?
I got jumped at a Murphy's Law show,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's. I mean, there was I mean, that was another part of the '80s. There was a lot of gang stuff and stuff, and if you were like,
A lot of those
well,
hardcore gangs too, it seemed like.
oh yeah, and it's like, I mean, it was Jersey Skins came down to Philadelphia to start trouble, and it was Murphy's Law, serial killers, and like halfway through the serial killers thing, like just pretty much so every skin in the place went after me,
Yeah.
and I walked away from it. So, you know,
Well, I went
uh,
to I saw a sheer terror with a bunch of other people, and I guess I bumped into the head of the gang the wrong way. So we traded a couple of blows. That was it. Then I got tanked, and I'm going home, and I got jumped by 12 people, like broken nose, blood
yeah,
everywhere.
that sounds par for the course. Last
But
time I saw sheer terror was with the Nihilistics at CB's, and somebody brought out a hammer during sheer terror's set. I saw that and I went, you know what? I'm gonna go in the back and hang out with the Nihilistics, and y'all can tell me who got killed later, and I won't have to give a police report because I wouldn't have seen anything.
Yeah, I remember and there was lots of like, you know, they have the tough guys and you're like dancing wrong and you bump into them and yeah, it was sometimes it was fun, sometimes it was a nightmare. But all right, let's get back to your book. So we should talk about
But
your book because we could
actually,
probably talk about the old school days all the time.
the funny thing is in a way we are talking about the book because I mean it like the first half of the book is what it was like in that time period, and yeah, there's some of the gang stuff is in there, the fights, the drugs, and all of that. And what even set that off was I've read a lot of quote unquote punk horror books,
Okay.
and they're always written by somebody who wasn't there.
Yeah.
You know,
That
like
was
it's
my
always
sorry
how
to interrupt you, but that was my problem with SLC Punk. I saw that and I hated it. I was like,
oh,
that is not punk rock.
I loathe that movie. The whole well now I'm gonna grow up. Now it's time to grow up ending. Oh my
Yeah,
God, I hated that. And the funny thing is when that came out, there I am, older than the people being depicted in there, and I'm still punk, and they're like, "Well, I guess it's time to grow up now.
yeah,
Go
fuck
get
you.
bent, go get bent sideways." But I mean, the thing is like, yeah, when we're talking about the scene, like all that stuff's in there, like because I mean, it was all part of living in the city at the time. I mean, there were gangs. There was a lot of fights. There was, I mean, drugs showed up. I mean,
I was doing
some people
Planet of
didn't make
Them.
it.
Maybe I
Hmm.
was doing Planet of Them.
But it's like it was all part of it, so it's got to be in the book. But I didn't try to turn it into isn't it cool and punk rock
Right.
that we were doing? Like some of that stuff was stupid as shit.
Oh, I
Looking
agree.
back on it, like a lot of the gang fights and like a lot of the just taking drugs to look, I'm an adult on taking drugs, like it fucked people up and people got hurt, and it's like, so it's I try to make it like more of a real representation of what it felt like to be in the city and what it felt like to be in a band in the city,
Okay. Is it
because
more of like
you
a
know
documentary of the time, or is there other fictional elements?
well, that's the thing. It's like I took that and then I turned it into a horror novel
Okay.
about demons of chaos
That's
trying to set
awesome. Yeah.
off set off these big explosions of violence to see which one brings us all down.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
And at that point, they're betting on Tompkins Square.
Oh, awesome.
You
Yeah.
know,
A
and
lot of what I do, I find, because I think it's more realistic when you write about stuff is like I'll often write stuff like, my big thing is comic horror, but it always trying to like bring in like the early days of punk rock. Like this was like to be homeless. This is what it's like to like explore abandoned houses in Washington D.C. or whatever.
yeah, I mean, there's like we had a homestead in around Seventh and D. And a homestead's like a step above a squat in that you kind of have some permission to be there at this point.
Okay.
Because like they basically
The
it
city
has
was
like
like, all
really
right, fuck it.
well, there's like really like low quote unquote rents, but as long as you can, the rent really is putting into like improving the place.
Okay.
Like you can prove that you're making improvements on the place as you go, and the city back then was willing to turn a blind eye to it or even like sanction it, and that was part of the big fight in that time period was we could feel the developers just licking their chops going, I mean, and they ended up winning, really, if you think about it, because like you could feel it happening then. Like they wanted a New York City that where rich people lived and poor people came from somewhere else, served them and left.
Yeah,
They
well,
didn't want,
that's
they
not a
didn't want,
surprise at all.
they didn't really want poor people actually living on Manhattan,
Right.
and that was the big fight, and you could feel it coming, and the cops set it off at Tompkins. There was another protest for squatters' rights and homeless rights at the time, and the cops came in and they pushed the wrong people around on the wrong night, and whole place blew up.
Yeah.
I mean, and
And
it
I
was
would bet they knew that too. So they kind of like factored that into like, if there's a riot, there's a reason to seize property and like, put people in jail and disrupt the whole scenario. I mean, that's delving into conspiracy theory territory, but I don't have a problem with
well. I mean,
that.
the thing is they diffused it too well after that. Like they just went, oh, it was our fault. We totally admit it was our fault, and then it was like the outrage died. Because I mean, it happens a lot in life. It's like where everybody gets really pissed off at somebody and they just issue a mea culpa and everybody kind of goes, nah. Well, okay. He said he was sorry. I don't know what the hell you would expect me to do now, you know. And the city kind of did that. Like Dinkins apologized. The cops apologized. Oh well, it just got a little out of hand. Tensions were up,
Few people
and
died, but
you know,
the
the funniest headline for my time living in the city was in like 1990. They were having a training session with the riot police out in Brooklyn, and they had to bring in a third riot police squad to break up the first two riot police squads that were having the training session because it got the fuck out of hand. I mean, that
I am
was,
not surprised at all. Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's funny. Like that was one of the things about like being a traveling punk is know your police forces. Like the NYPD, like as an individual cop, they were never really that bad. But as their riot squad was out of their goddamn mind. Philly's riot squad couldn't like fight their way out of a wet paper sack, but individually, those cops could get really nasty, really hard. And LAPD brought it all together in one unified, just avoid the cops.
Well,
That's
I
my voice.
remember I always hated cops growing up, and then moved to New York, and I'm a tattoo artist. So, like, I've met some really cool cops, but I've also met some absolute douchebags. Like, my roommate was going out with the cop, and she brought him in. He's like sitting down. He's like, I don't know, he's like in his 20s. And I was like, he's in a real rough neighborhood. I'm like, how's your job? He goes, oh, good. I just beat people up all day. I was like, typical.
But yeah, I mean, then actually, that's the first half of the book. And then the second half of the book is like basically the demon comes back and it's set now and it deals with like again, it has the horror element, and the horror element's really important, but it also deals with a lot of what it feels like, for older punks. Where we have houses, a lot of us have been divorced. We got kids in college now. We're adults, and at the same time, we still don't 100% feel like we are really real adults.
Right.
Like we just, and like there's a lot of stuff in there that's happened to me, like in the last 10 years. It's like going to a show now, how you feel like, Jesus Christ. You see kids in there like, and they're like, my God, I got kids older than you. Jeez, friggin' wheeze. And it's like, but then on top of it, like, there's still the occasional friend who's still fucking up, like after all
Yeah.
these years, and it's
Usually
like
they've kind
you
of like
still,
it seems, at least to me, like they've gone way downhill. It's like, how did you screw up your life that bad?
it's like, well, like about 5 or 6 years ago, the original drummer from my band, The Repressed, OD'd.
Yeah,
And it's like
my brother did
that
that. Yeah, I've had plenty of people.
that hits like totally different, like when you're this age, because it's like, how could you not have fucking learned?
Yeah,
There's like that point of anger there, like that's just like how you've got decades of seeing this shit crash and burn, and you still didn't learn.
right.
My God. And there's also guilt, like like the feeling of had all this time and knew he had problems and we could never get him straightened out, and like where it's like you feel like you needed to straighten him out, and it's like it doesn't work that way, and that logically, but you still feel that way, you know and I mean that was, I kind of described the book as somewhere between King Punk, which was a great punk memoir from a while back, and
I'm
you
not
know
familiar with that. Who did that?
I'd have to look it up. I know the title of the book, but like I can never remember the author's name. It's like a relatively normal name, but it's like I think the book is like part King Punk and part It coming of age story.
Okay.
Um, where it's like, it deals with like all this the it's Human Punk and it's by John King. That's why I screwed it up
Okay.
in my head. But it I wanted to give like I wanted to give the reader a real like I wanted to give them a kicking horror story, thus demons, cannibals, and demons of chaos and stuff. But at the same time, I also wanted to I wanted a horror book that actually that's supposed to be about like centered on punk rock that was written by somebody who was right there
Right.
in it and through it and all of
Somebody
it.
knew what the fuck he's talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I wouldn't go back and write a book about 79 because hell it wasn't there. I
Right.
mean, I was alive, but I wasn't in the punk
You
scene
were
at the
there, but
time,
not there. Yeah.
I had just seen the Ramones.
Okay.
And mind you, that on TV, I had just seen the Ramones on TV. My eyes were definitely being opened, and I had already known that 70s rock sucked so badly. I mean, between prog rock, folk rock, stadium rock, it was just, none of it really rocked.
Yeah. And I
So
still
few.
can't listen to it. People are like, "Oh, well, didn't they grow?" No.
Yeah, that's why I could never understand grunge. Was like a lot of those guys were like, "Oh yeah, man, like we got my brother's record collection. We're like listening to Led Zeppelin and Bad Company now." I was like, I hated
Well,
it the first
I
time.
like early grunge, but it wasn't even grunge. It like to me, it was just like more like skater punk, like early Mudhoney, like that first album, like early Nirvana, like that
Well,
first
actually,
album.
the first Nirvana record was stunning to me at the time
Oh yeah,
because I mean, I heard Negative Creep on my local little college
Negative
radio
Creep
station.
is still my favorite song by them. Yeah,
And I was just like, wait a second. This came out on Sub Pop?
yeah.
What? Sub Pop
Well, I
doesn't put
like
out
that
records like
early
this.
L7. Do you hear that early L7 with their like
L7
all
was,
biker chicks and stuff?
yeah, L7 was closer
Smell the
to,
Magic. It was awesome.
L7 and Lunatics both came out around the same time.
Oh,
Like,
I used to have a big crush on the bases for L7, so I'd watch them all the time, like right near the stage. And my girlfriend knew I had a crush on her, but she's like, I know you're never gonna fuck her, so I don't care.
it's out of your league, so it's kind of funny, actually. Thanks for the vote of confidence, hon.
Well, you know,
But, yeah, I mean, like, I just, because I can't help myself. I know that when I see a punk horror book, always know it's going to be written by somebody who is going to have an imagined version of what it was like, and it's not going to ring true. But I read it anyway,
no, I hear
and I
you.
can't help myself.
The guy who really got me into like kind of like rebooted me like after cancer and all that stuff to really get down on writing was Wayne Simmons. And I remember Wayne Simmons from Ireland. He's all tattooed up and he wrote a book about the zombie apocalypse with a tattoo artist. So he got a hold of me to like, see if it was a realistic portrayal. And I was like, very obviously, this guy is not a tattoo artist because he has a tattoo artist doing things that tattoo artists would never do. I mean, good on him that he got a hold of me to like run it by me. But I'm like, yeah, tattoo artists wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do
Well,
that.
that's the thing. If a book hits into something and it doesn't things are wrong, it really takes you out of the book. I mean, especially it does really hard with me. It's
Yeah, no, I
like
agree. Yeah.
like Grady Hendrix's book, We Sold Our Souls to Rock and Roll. Well, the thing is my band was playing around the Bethlehem area in the exact same time period. He has his band in the book form and he gets like so much crap wrong, and it's like it's almost impossible to read because it's like, no, my band was playing around there. I know all of this stuff. If you had talked to me for 5 minutes, you know what? I
No,
could have
I hear you.
probably
I think the exact same way. Like I think like the best stuff is like I really like John Lennon and like Johnny Ron's book No Blacks, No Irish, No Dogs.
I like that one, yeah.
Yeah, I was like that's a realistic portrayal of what was going on. Yeah,
I like Lexicon Devil just because it's everybody's point of view. They asked a lot of people, but it was all people that were there,
right.
for like for the germs as it happened, so they talk, so you get like a much fuller portrayal of it, and you get it from people who were there, so it's like you get an understanding of what it was like. And I still wouldn't write a 79 LA book, so but it's like, yeah, I've read their books, and hey, their books are great. I wouldn't do it myself because I just I know I'd get something wrong, and I know it would be crucial, and I know somebody who I would like, I want would want to like the book would be sitting there like just twitching, you know. Um, Chris Walter is a good author for like punk stuff though. Um, he generally keeps it to stuff he knows. He's also done like a lot of biographies from with bands from like Canada. Like he did the De La Abortions biography, did the SNFU one. He was really good friends with Chai Pig, so like
Okay.
he had it right from the horse's
Did you
mouth.
read the Rollins one, Black Flag?
Get in the van. No, I
Yeah.
did not. I'm really good friends with a guy from Kent State, Red Brigade Kent State. He's like one of my best friends, and if you want to get him mad really quickly, bring up get in the van. He'll just
Well, I enjoyed
just
it.
watch him
I would take
explode.
Rollins 100%. I actually I like Rollins as a character, but I think he was the worst singer of Black Flag.
Well, I think it's not all his fault. Like everybody like blames him, but it's like there's a difference between causality and coincidence. Like what really I think happened is Dukowski left the band,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
and
It makes sense.
when
It's kind of like
when
when
Duke,
him and Les Slayer, and they just were never the same.
well, like Duke had enough oomph in the band that when he was there, Greg's worst instincts could be kind of kept in control. Like Duke could come in and go, "No, we're not doing that. That's stupid. No, we're not going to." But then, like once Duke was out, there was nobody who had enough presence in the band to ever say no.
Right.
So, Henry
Well,
never.
I do think, I mean, Henry was like, he was very young at the time. I know he's very controversial, but it's like a lot of people were at that time. And I don't think, I don't like his vocals as much as I like some of the other singers of Black Flag. But like, as far as like the music itself, definitely that's not Rollins. Rollins didn't even write a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, and well, he joined a band he worshipped before he joined, and
Right.
that's almost always a recipe for disaster because you don't have the mental state to be able to say no, this is crap, like a full band member.
Right.
Like because like a band works better like differently than a solo project because in a band everybody's got to say, and everybody has the ability to put their foot down and go, nah, this is crap. No, it doesn't fit what we're doing here as a group. And with Duke out,
Well,
there was
I think
nobody.
sorry to get off. I think at that age, I don't even know if he was like really in the right state of mind to write something. Like Rat Size is a horrible song, Jealous Again is a great song, So like I don't think he was like like in that era. It was more of a, like I'm in my mind, I'm mad about everything.
But he literally drove from DC to New York to join the band
Oh, I
without even
know. Yeah.
telling without even telling SOA that SOA was done.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like he didn't even like tell them like he was leaving SOA. He just hopped on a bus and went to New York and joined Black Flag. And the guys
Well,
in
I know he
SOA were kind of like,
consulted with Ian, and like Ian McKay was like, yeah, you should do it. But I guess he didn't tell the band.
nope. At least according to stuff I've read, like in Band in DC and a couple other books, no, a couple of the members of the band found out like after the fact that they didn't have a singer anymore.
Yeah, it sucks. Yeah. All right, man. So let's get back to your book real quick. I don't want to run too late because I have another podcast after this. But so why don't you give me like a brief summary of like what people can look forward to?
Well, the first half of the book is, I mean, it is New York City in the late '80s. I mean, it's a lead singer of a band, um, and he can feel something's wrong with the city, and he can't put his finger on it, and he feels like it's this one cult. And in the late '80s in New York City, there were a lot of cults. There were a lot of everybody had a goddamn church. And there are some characters in it that are like you'll be able to recognize them if you were there, you know. But overall, I tried to keep it away from like I don't want to have to talk to my friends later and go, so how'd you like the fictionalized account of yourself? You know, because I still talk to some people from back then, man, and I don't really want to have that discussion, but it definitely does give you an idea of what it felt like right before Tompkins Square blew the hell up. I
Okay, awesome.
mean, and the horror, I almost put this out under a pseudonym because it's bloodier than what I normally go for.
Like
But
Poodle.
at the end of the Werepoodle is not particularly bloody at all, and it's like this is borderline splatter.
Okay.
Um, and it's like, but at the same time, it was like it's such a personal memoir. It would have felt like there's so much personal stuff in there. It would have felt like a total pussy move not to put my name on it.
Okay.
I mean, and I have a pseudonym for splatterpunk, like because my first splatterpunk novel, Faceless, that's PJ Verfall, and that's because I don't want people to like who are like fans of like which is a West by God or Werepoodle to like pick up like Faceless is splatterpunk. Like I don't even believe I wrote it.
Over the top.
Very, very. Like one of my normal readers said that book fucked me up. My publisher said it made me physically ill. I mean, basically
I
last
think
year
it
I was
was a
recovering
compliment.
from.
So, like
Yeah,
when
no,
people
last year
get like a
I
one
was
star and the one star says, oh, this is disgusting or whatever. I'm like, oh, that was
Oh, if I get a
actually a
one
good
star on that, man,
review.
I'm just like, if I get a one star like that on Faceless, I'll just be like, you know what? Good, I won.
Right. I mean, if the
I
one star
achieved
is
what I
like, oh,
aimed.
poor writing or whatever, okay, that might be like a negative critique. When they're like, oh, this scared me, or like, I remember there's one that was like, since when is there atheism in Splatterpunk? And like, I don't care what you believe, but it's like, you're gonna get down on people for what they believe.
Wait a second. There's like, I'm thinking of the history of splatterpunk right now, and I'm just going, when hasn't atheism been in splatterpunk?
Well, that's a punk part, definitely.
And like, I mean,
I
the
remember
book.
you said like I would not listen to bands if one of the members is Christian.
What's that?
Like I would not listen to bands if I found out that one of the members is Christian, even if he didn't contribute, I'm like, yeah, fuck that.
It's that's funny. The other day, speaking of my friend from Kent State, just to annoy him, I put up there was this Christian punk band called the Altar Boys, and just to get on his nerves, I put their video for when you're a rebel on his timeline, just because I could feel him going, okay, that's funny, but you're a dick.
But all right, man. So this latest book that you have out, what's the name of it again, and where can people find it?
Notes of Discord, and it's pretty much so everywhere. I mean, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, Amazon, of course, because Amazon has everything.
The few brick and mortar stores that still exist.
Yep, but I mean, you can get it. You can get it from Barnes and Noble. You can get it from Books a Million. I don't know if it's on IndieBound now yet, but I'm pretty sure it will be. And I know
Okay, do you
Thrift
have a
Books has it as well.
website they can check out?
Um, basically, W. I don't know if it's a .com. Hold up, I have to check my own website. Just give me a second here. I mean, I have a link tree as well, but okay, yeah, okay. It's Lubaczewski spelled Lubaczewski .wordpress.com.
Okay, I'll put it up so people can see it if they watch the video, if they don't just listen. But all right, man, do you got anything else you want to throw out there to people should check out, they should be aware of?
If you like Notes of Discord, go back and check out my novella, A New Life. Very street kid, street punk novella I wrote like a while back. Unfortunately, it released 7 days before the lockdown, and I don't know what your sales did, but mine and most of the people I know, the day lockdown hit was the day it was also locked down on any sales. Like
Mine
sales just
actually went up because my novel at the time was called The End of the World. And people were like, oh, it's the end of the world, so
most people's sales like just
it
died on a
tanked.
dime. Like it was like just like a sudden heart attack on sales.
You would think
And
if
yeah,
you're locked in your house, that would help.
yeah, I thought the same thing. I ended up putting it up free for a little while. And that was just kind of a nice kindness of my heart sort of thing. It's like, you know what? You're stuck in your house. This sucks. It sucks for everybody here. Have a book to read.
All right, man.
But
So, um, sorry to cut it short, but do you have
no problem.
anything else you want to throw out there for
Next year,
the what?
next year, Cult of the Gator God comes back into publication. Madness Heart Press is re-releasing it.
Okay. Are you going to be at any conventions or book readings?
Nothing coming up. I'm gonna be at Screams in Brownsville next year. It hasn't been announced yet, but I'm on the list for that. I haven't really set up next year yet.
Okay. Are you thinking about doing anything like a Killer Con or Author Con or anything like that?
No, I'm out on AuthorCon. I did it last year.
Which
No,
one? The Dallas one or the Virginia one?
Virginia. Um, no, I'm pretty much so. I'm trying to like I did a bunch last year and I did a bunch the year before, so I'm trying to keep it down to maybe some local stuff. Screams up in Brownsville. It's a very cool event. So I'm looking forward to doing that again. That's in Brownsville, Pennsylvania, and that's right outside of Pittsburgh.
Okay. All right. So everyone check him out, buy his book. And thank you very much for being on this podcast for the second time.
Hey, thank you for having me for a second time.